Thank you all, and welcome to this data communication through PowerBI and PowerAutomate webinar. And well, this is a special one because we saw very traction on our customer, and something that is really demand on our customers. So we decided to create this webinar imparted by our Power BI specialist, Rafael Galvez. So first of all, let me to introduce myself very quick. I'm Eric Martin. I'm the country manager of the MDW Spain. And yeah, very quick, I will introduce our company in just 1 minute. So, well, as I was saying, we have different offices. We are present in Geneva, where we have our headquarters in Madrid and in Paris. So, well, a little bit of our credentials are that we are the partner of the year in analytics and AI. That is 100% of our activity. So it's a very good award for us. And we were the first partner of Microsoft Invalidate the data platform and analytics advanced specialization in the whole region EMEA. So well, about our customers, as we are fully dedicated to data, let's say we are a little bit agnostic and we can work with each industry providing data and analytics solution. So if you can pass to the next one. Okay, so what we do is actually, like I said, we are 100% dedicated to data. And inside this data world, we are dedicated to big data. We specialize in everything related to modern cloud data warehouse and data lake, even in the data streaming, sorry, because I'm admitting at the same time. So data streaming, data in batch processing, and with very big companies, which is the main differentiator I think we have in this topic. On the artificial intelligence one, we are specialized, and this is something that is quite different from in provide end-to-end AI solutions. So meaning that we are not delivering just one model and that's all. So we are putting things into production, which is the main differentiator. And we can work with every kind of data nature, tabular data, time series, images, and text, for example. And finally, we are dedicated also to data-driven application, which is the one that is focused today. So in that part, we specialize also in business intelligence. And here, again, our differentiator is to work with companies, big companies that has, let's say, different problems than a report, no? And well, how to put this into a professional way, how to create the adoption and training part, how to, let's say, deploy global markets and so on. So with this one, I think I've ended, and I pass the word to our Power BI specialist, Rafael Galvez. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Eric. So, as my colleague said, here we are to learn about how Power BI can integrate with other tools to provide us with more data communication within our organization. The need for this arises from an effective data communication within a company. We are so focused today in just be data driven, getting all our data some value from it. But the thing is that usually there's something so easy as communication that fails sometimes to do its part and undermines the whole purpose of getting value from data, because if that value cannot be properly communicated, it's stale, it turns useless, it turns into even a problem sometimes, which we shall also see during the demo. So let's start then. First, we talk about what's the objective and the goals, and briefly, because we have a lot to cover when it comes to the solution itself. And then we'll go immediately into the solution from certain different parts. I'll walk you through different approaches that this solution comes into, because it's not just one type of people at the end of the day. As you can already imagine, as you already know, an organization is encompassed by a lot of profiles, by a lot of different parts, cogs that make it work. So data also needs different tools to arrive to these parts, and we shall see it now. So the goal of this webinar is to understand these tools. As I already said, it's pretty self-explanatory. So we shall not go into much depth when it comes to the technical part of it. We shall focus on the value it adds, not as much as how to actually implement it or how to actually get the technical part of it. So our goals today also are learning to communicate your data in Power BI with Teams, PowerAutomate, and others. The others part might surprise you, because some are quite old friends for everyone here, I suppose. And this also will help at the end of the day. Communication will also help raise awareness throughout your whole organization. That shall also help you control KPIs, because when people own their KPIs, know what they are, know how they're measured, and actually how they influence their daily work, that's how you get those KPIs to actually bring value to your organization. And also, finally, this will all result in reducing the time and adding accuracy from insight to action, because insight, just like that, like getting that insight from your data, is not enough. That insight must drive action. That's why the communication shall also come into part into that. So our challenges will be, first, establishing audiences for our data communications. We shall see it now, but data interacts differently with different parts of our organization. And I say data interacts, not people interact, because data kind of comes into our daily work, sometimes without even us knowing about it or even trying to get it into our work. So it's more like data interacts with us more than we interact with it. So we have to define different levels of communication and interaction, because each audience has its own needs or its own interactions with data. So a right tool for the job must be chosen. It's not, the same tool doesn't work for everybody, and those interactions may need different tools. So this can be implemented within Power BI, with Power BI through some integrations, so that our data is perfectly connected with these tools. And then you have to incrementally test this with your audiences and see how acceptance goes in. Pretty much like when you are trying to implement any changes within the organization, you need to test these changes and monitor how well are they being accepted. So without further ado, let's go into the proposed solution. This is something that we've already worked within with our clients, and it seems to work pretty well with them when we actually help them get this communication within the organization. So first, we must establish our audiences, those different groups that have different needs that will require those different tools. First, we are going to talk about developers, then executives, and then operations. As you can see, these three are quite different, quite different profiles, because the developers have a more technical part, executives have the more business part, and operations have the day-to-day part. So this will help us see how different the interaction is. The levels of communication and interaction required for each audience. Well, developers tend to work with data in a way that, hey, you have this data. We need to do something about it. We have to bring value from it. So they work in a kind of agile work, normally in an agile environment. So they actually work like if they were using post-its in boards, in sprints, bringing documentation to the table. And when they work with the data is when that data goes into the executive part, where executives must present it, analyze it, and take decisions about it. Like, it's not the same that the developers do. Developers work with it, try to analyze it and bring value from it. The executives have to use that analysis, have to analyze it in a different way. It's not so technical, it's more like getting that to business value. So those decisions they take and those actions they take finally come into work in operations, coming through different ways to communicate more specific directions that operations have to follow. The right tool for each audience here should be, for developers, we have the Power BI service commentary system and Azure DevOps that will help us communicate within our developing process. Executives, as I said, these are old friends for most of us. We have Teams, PowerPoint, and the Automate part is the one that should be interesting then. And operations should get the other end of that Automate part, and Outlook, from which they will extract their data. So first, for development, project coordination, and management, both Power BI Service and Azure DevOps can bring to the table a better organization of the work process. In Power BI Service, you can actually comment within the report that it's been developed so that everybody having access to that report is on the same page on the state of the report. You can even ping someone on some changes, and actually you can define states within the report that should be saved as a perspective for them to see in the comment. Like when they click the comment and see, hey, there's something wrong with this interaction, they should see the state of the report in which that interaction breaks. And in a more agile perspective, Azure DevOps help us keep track of tasks to manage this development. Then, for executive presentation, PowerPoint Live connection lets us present, for example, like now, present our presentation to PowerPoint to a Teams audience. And here we can also embed a PBI report in a presentation as a web element so that it's usable. That helps bring a lot of value into the presentations. However, this is fresh, new from this month. Now there's a new functionality some of you might have heard from, that it's Power BI embedded in PowerPoint presentations. So right now I can use the report within the presentation. This should come in handy later. You'll see. There are some quirks and kinks that have to be ironed out, but we'll see. So the other part of this is sharing the report through Teams. You can share your reports through Teams in a way that the whole team within a presentation can actually explore them and bring out their own insights from it. So it's not such a monolithic or like mainly informative experience, the presentation, because it's not like just the presenter showing what they found within the report. You can actually also explore the report yourselves and get insights from it during the presentation, so that you can actually bring something new to the table that no one might have noticed before. And finally, operations can be coordinated through the use of PowerAutomate flows that should help us deliver our insights to them directly from the very presentation. We shall see in the demo, but within the very executive board meeting, the executives can interact with the Power BI and send through a button, this send data button that we've set up here. They can send the specific data they need to someone so that they are aware of some problem, for example, that happens with something. This can be triggered from Power BI or can be triggered in the more traditional Automate fashion through triggers or something like that. But it can be quite useful. We shall talk about it in a little bit. So here we shall start the demo with a case study just to show not just the theory but also the practice in a way that it's actually quite, in my experience, that comes around quite a lot. Like there's some problems here that you should see that might have already happened to you too. So in this organization, the problem is that there's a quite steep growth in revenue this year, but some voices within the executive board are concerned because this steep growth is way too abnormal. They don't understand really why this might have happened. So they might want to improve the visibility over this. So due to this, they communicate with the development team because they want them to create a Power BI report so they can better study this revenue growth and especially how margins have been affected by this. So the problem is that the client has no clear visibility of the dimensions for the KPI. They don't know what has happened. They just know there's been a growth and they just know that there might be something wrong with margin, but they don't really know where these changes have been made specifically, which part of this organization have been the main actor in this part. So the report should help identify which are the main segments in which these changes have been produced. Also, the lack of optimized data communication flow. We shall see later how this can affect. And the solution for this should be the report highlighting margin by focus dimensions, the product and the store, that should be the ones that we study, and protocols for internal data communication so that existing audiences can better interact with data, as we said. For this, we shall need the tools that we already talked about and to implement it correctly so that everything works perfectly. So from the perspective of the developers, they've received from the executive board the need to create a Power BI report. And so they begin their development process using Power BI Service and Azure DevOps. This should help them by let me a second. This should help them, as you can see in the screen. They can actually write within the report, like while they're developing it, like, hey, there's something wrong with the margin, for example, and they can post it. And this might grab the attention of someone in the team so that they can actually work on it. Or, for example, if there was something wrong with the formatting or the colors were wrong and they actually needed to do something different, they can comment it with people from the team so that it can be fixed ASAP. And all these tasks can be worked within this using the boards. We can actually move from different parts of the process, the tasks, so that they can be approved, posted into progress, and reviewed. For example, if we have the visual development process that is already done, we can move it to review so that someone reviews it. When we get the feedback by directors, it should be moved to done. And also, this can be broken down into tasks. For example, the main graph, or auxiliary measures, for example, and format. And we can monitor the state of different tasks within a single story by clicking here and actually fulfilling those tasks. That's for the developer part. Now, going on to the executive part, we've seen that we can present the data within our board. We can see and change the data and touch it within the executive board, and we can click on the button to send the data. So for this part, I'm going to actually get out of this and get back to here. There's a kink, as I told you, with the presentation, in which this new functionality, when working within the presentation, if you try to select several parts of the same Power BI, you have to use control. If you use control while presenting, you will bring out the laser point, so it won't work. There's a little bit to work into that yet. So, for example, within the executive board right now, they are working with this report, and they have seen that there's a steep growth in revenue, but there's a steep decrease in margins. Why is that? Well, if someone from the team might be seeing this and actually exploring it from their data, and when they click around, they find that, hey, it's at VentureWorks, our product that is our line of product that this has the least margin. So if we click here, we shall realize that it has consistently low margins throughout the whole time it's been produced. But if we have already segmented it by VentureWorks, who are the best sellers for this? This Cambridge. Cambridge store is the one that's pushing this product. And as such, by pushing this product so much, they've made a steep growth in sales. This is a product that is actually quite good in quality, but has very low margins. So they need, in order to get the revenue better, to grow their revenue, they actually worsened their margin by a lot. They push products that were quite a good quality, but with a way too low price for the quality. And at the end of the day, they are hurting their margin. They are actually making it worse. So at this point, we'll go to the button here, to the same data button. We click it, and then comes the next part, the operations part. In the operations part, going to click the button from that executive presentation. The person that has to receive that data that can be determined by different rules shall receive an email such as this, in which, for example, you can get the data export and the CSV file, or you can get an HTML table. This table can also be worked on with CSS, so it can have a different different format. You can add more messages. You can add dynamic messages using parameters so that it can take the name of the person that is responsible for that data, or it can get the information that it needs from the store. It's quite, you can work with it a little bit more to get a better result from this. This is just to show how it can be done within the very executive presentation. You can actually click on that same data button, and the interested parties shall receive that email. There are some more interactions with it, because you can actually decide the importance of and relevancy of the mail. You can add more steps to the PowerAutomate so that it sends SMS messages or other kinds of integrations. So there's quite a lot to see with PowerAutomate when it comes to Power BI. And after that, we can see that there should be changes before and after this, because before, our organization could rely mainly on mails, phone number, phone calls, and meetings. Just think that each line of this can be this, this, and this, or any combinations of the three. So we have an executive board that needs to get better understanding of the data. So they send a request for the development team to actually get that report. They work together separately because, as we know, Power BI right now doesn't really have a code developing feature. It's a little bit difficult to develop a dashboard between several people in a manner of actually getting it, merging the parts, merging the code, so to speak. So they work together, they split the task, and at the end of the day, they work it, and they get a single report coming from the parts of the both. Okay, this report goes back to the executive board. They like it, and as such, they tell them that they want this board to be getting feedback for operations and getting recommendations from them. So they ask them to get the report into a more data-centric format like this. Can this be, that is very fun, that can it be exported to a table that we usually get, we analysts get? We get that export to Excel functionality request always. So they make it so that it can export files. They export those files and get them to operations And now operations sees them and says, hey, there's some things I'd like to change. So, but who do I tell this to? The thing is that this happened to me, to my teams, to a previous team I worked on. We had trouble with this because we got feedback from operations, but the thing is that they communicated with the person they liked the most. So one manager communicated with this developer and said, hey, I need changes on this and I need it ASAP. So they began developing. They didn't get into any kind of management, because remember, this is without Azure DevOps and without any kind of project management whatsoever, apart from talking to each other and mail chains. So they tell this developer, hey, I need this change. They change the report and they completely bypass the process in which they both coordinate. So the report gets directly overwriting the other report. And this report is a different report from what it was before. Now, the problem is that there are several managers within the operation. So another manager might like another developer more or might have more contact with another developer. The thing is that when they contact them, they say the same, hey, I need this change made ASAP. So they do this change. Then again, they bypass this whole thing and the report gets overwritten yet again. But this time is worse because this feedback has already been seen by executive board. And this is another change right now. So it's going to be seen again, and it's going to break whatever this developer did before. Now, this breaking actually makes it so that the report is wrong, and executive board asks for responsibility from the operations team, like, what have you done? Why have you told the development team to do this? They come back with, hey, we needed this because you told us to get them feedback. We needed this functionality. So they get back to the developers. Why did you accept this request change if you knew that there are other request change conflicting with it? They didn't know because they were just communicating with themselves by mails, communications, and with the urgency of some things, if you don't have visibility of your task, it can be difficult to manage that. The thing is that the whole thing becomes a mess because these two now have been the problem of each other. They have actually broken the part of the other, and they are having problems, like real communication problems between themselves. They now might even hate themselves. And the thing is that that breaks all cooperation, that will result in worse data down the line and might hurt the whole organization. That's how dangerous and harmful a bad data communication can be. The thing is that after using those tools, those communication tools, now we work in two separate bubbles. One, development, the other, the organization, the business part of the organization, so to speak. This part, the executive board, attending to the needs of the organization and how they perceive the operations have some functionalities that must be gotten into. This part sends requirements for a report to the development part. They get these requirements, and as such, they state which data is going to be needed for this report. Usual fashion for us. And with this, they get that request. They request that data from the operations, and when they have both, they work in sync using the communication tools we told. They talk through the Power BI service comments so that they are in sync with the changes that have to be made. Every change request must go through the whole team so that nobody's out. And data is also taken into account so that there's no stray data, no broken data, no last minute changes of data from anyone. You state windows in which that data comes from, and now it's a better order process. And from this comes the data in a neatly Power BI fashion so that it's the same thing for everybody, because this report is what informs everybody. This report has the presentation part the executive board needs, also the analytic part to discover all the problems that might arise. And at the same time, it's the same tool that through PowerAutomate communicates data and the needs of the company to operations by the PowerAutomate tools that we can implement in there. that go even beyond from what we've already seen, because it's not just mails. You can actually automate tasks. You can automate more things. That was just a little bit of an example, but it can develop into a full-fledged communication tool from data to operations by executive. So that should help a lot get this into motion. Like, see this diagram here. This is chaos. And imagine all these communications, all these traces of emails, calls, and meetings that might have, like, I've missed an email. I don't know where it is. I haven't taken notes from this call, or I haven't taken notes from this meeting, or I misinterpret this. And this becomes a mess quite easily, quite fast. But here, everybody has visibility of everything. Everybody knows what they have to do, and everybody has the tools to communicate with the people they need to communicate to work. And as such, this disappears and this appears. So the outcomes of this are we gain and discuss insights in a single view as per Power BI report fashion. We do have a neat UI to get our insights from. We can share those insights with our organization, which also helps take actions and coordinate, because it's not just about insights. It's more like the actions that are taken according to those insights. At the end of the day, this finally helps us improve our time from insight to action, and also avoid the harm that insight might provoke if not handled properly, and the harms that communication can do if we don't have them properly implemented within the organization. With all this said, I will leave it to Eric to talk to you about what is actionable from here.
Thank you, Rafa. Thank you for the presentation. It was just awesome. So if you can, yep. So very quick, how to create a kind of project like this that can change some ways of working inside the organization. So first of all, we have to check the prerequisites, and really here the key point is to find that this solution really will get our revenue in our organization. Like, well, I think it's clear in this case, but you have to find this part. And second, you need to analyze, define what you exactly want, what are your end users, and identify your main challenges corresponding with these KPIs that you want to consume. And then define the solution. And here it's always recommended, and it's how we usually start to developing a pilot to see the real potential of this solution. And then on the next phase, on the launch phase, we can deploy and share the solution. Start with, let's say, the most professional and enterprise focused components, such as knowledge transfer, adoption, change management, and continuous improvement. So I hope you like. I think there is questions on the chat, but Maxim, which is also our CEO, is taking care of those one. So if you have any question more, please write it on the chat, and we can comment it. Okay, so well, to more or less refresh what is asking, Tobias asked if I build a Power BI report with the button to automatically export data into an existing Excel sheet. I automatically refresh all my reports in Power BI. It is possible to automatically export down to the Excel sheet when the Power BI is automatically refreshing itself. And Maxim has sent a link in case you are interested of how to do that with PowerAutomate. So if there is no more questions, we can close here. And yeah, feel free to contact us if you have any more doubts, if you want to know how this can fit into your organization or whatever. So you have my contact, Rafa's contact, and feel free to write us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.